First off, I appreciate you committing to doing this and staying in contact for the last couple months and making it work.
Yeah, it was touch and go for a while there. Gosh, every time we turned around, we were sick with one thing or another. I haven't been sick in 25 years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it just hit us both.
Right. You got through COVID okay without getting sick?
I never got COVID. And Jane got the long COVID, but I never did.
Yeah. Isn't that something? It makes you wonder, because some people got it and they never knew. And then
that's how it is. It's just like a flu.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. And then we take, both of us right now, we're on ivermectin and fenbendazole both.
Okay.
And that stuff is amazing. It just makes you feel better. And we sleep on grounded sheets.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stir in the media right now about ivermectin having a pretty big impact, they think, on cancer. And I don't know, I need to dig deeper into it, but I think part of the articles that I was reading was saying in like countries that we give a lot of ivermectin to, very low cancer rate. And I know it's not everything's that definitive. There's a lot of other things, probably like their diet, exercise, things like that. But
who do you think's fighting it?
Right.
The drug companies.
I know.
They don't want anything that works.
Right.
They want to keep you buying pills in the hospital.
Wouldn't that be something if it comes around and then all these cures for all these diseases were just the simplest thing?
According to my wife and how the stuff she follows, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Going to be med beds and stuff. One of the best cures I've heard of lately, and this is of Alzheimer's and a lot of things, guess what it is?
Nicotine.
Nicotine.
Yeah.
You got to, starting to get Alzheimer's, get a nicotine patch, put it right between your shoulder blades.
Yeah.
It's stopping cancer on some people.
That's what they said. It stops they think myocarditis, Alzheimer's. I think it has some positive effects on people with autism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
And other things. So I'll stick with that. What do you got?
If you just want to grab that mic and angle it just a bit.
Oh, here.
Which way?
I can get it for you.
There we go.
Is that it? Is that better?
That's a lot better. There we go. Perfect.
What are the chances? It makes you wonder. Do you do nicotine pouches like in your lip? Do you do the nicotine pouches in your lip?
No.
Did you ever chew tobacco?
Oh, I chewed tobacco. I started chewing when I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
The old timers used to feed me a little bit of day's work or beach nut or something, and God, I got hooked.
Do you remember your first dip?
Of Copenhagen, I was a full-blood chewer by the time I got to Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you guys chewing like Redman or Levi Garrett when you were little?
A little bit of Garrett, yeah, but mostly I chewed day's work chewing tobacco because it made deer taste better.
It made deer?
Beer, excuse me.
Oh, beer.
I said, yeah.
Oh.
I hated the taste of beer, and so if you're going to keep up with the Joneses, you got to find a little bit of day's work made beer taste sweet.
Was that their slogan? Or was that just something you guys threw around?
How I learned to be a good drunk is how.
It's funny. I loved chewing tobacco, loved it. And I, played baseball stuff. And, but I remember my first one, we had a bet with my buddy's grandpa and he chewed Copenhagen snuff. And I think we were 14 and it was at deer camp. And it was if we shot a deer, he had to drink Dr. Pepper. He hated Dr. Pepper and we got Copenhagen snuff. Well, we were, pretty ambitious kids and we both got deer that year. And man, it was about 2 minutes into that Copenhagen snuff, boy, we were in the tent.
Yeah.
Laid us out.
Yeah.
But it's funny how you can,
excuse me,
it fools you to try it again somehow.
Well, I tell you, I chewed up until I met Jane. And she said, if we're going to get together, I'm not going to kiss you if you're going to keep chewing that shit.
Yeah.
So I quit. I used to smoke, drink, and chew a lot of tobacco, cuss a lot, just a guy thing.
Yeah, just with the boys.
All I do is cuss anymore.
There you go. Did she get you to quit all of those, the smoking, drinking, and chewing?
I quit smoking first. She was a smoker. But I quit drinking in 1981. It was...
Oh, good for you.
It was beating me up really bad. I struggled with a little PTSD and needed to get away from it, and that's the best thing I ever did because then the other slowed way down.
Right. We'll get back to that. So we were talking about your childhood chewing tobacco after a day's work. Where'd you grow up at? When were you born?
I was born in 1948 in Grant County, Oregon. And my folks, my dad had a garbage route in John Day, and then my mother worked in a dress shop. And we stayed there until my dad had to quit. He was working too hard, and his stomach started coming apart.
Oh, yeah.
So he loaded us up, I think, in, I'm going to say, 54, and we moved to Alaska.
Oh, wow.
And we lived up at North Pole, Alaska, if you've ever been up there.
No, I've never been to North Pole,
I was
Alaska.
up there 2 or 3 years ago, and it's really changed from when I was up there
Oh, really?
in the early 50s, but...
It's all developed?
Oh, yeah.
With
yeah.
the industry, with
No,
oil?
Everything. That's help, but it's just people,
Oh, okay.
They gotta have some place to live. And he got hurt. He about lost a leg in a crusher accident. And so we started to come out of there on Halloween. Actually, my mom drove my brother and I and my dad out of there. Get back into Mount Vernon, and then we moved into a ranch down there. And just progressed on from there. We had a house in Mount Vernon, but we stayed on the ranch all the time,
Oh, nice.
which was 5 miles west of Mount Vernon.
Was it a cattle ranch?
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
nice.
3,500 acres.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I grew up.
Okay.
It is. We did everything from hunting and fishing to roping and branding and doing all things that you do on the ranch. And,
Yeah. The American
couldn't
way.
ask for a better way to grow up. I certainly couldn't.
I bet.
No.
Is it crazy to look back on growing up on a ranch and just even hunting and fishing, like the things that you learn that you're not trying to learn? Like you learn these, I don't know, it's hard to say. I always say like not tactics, or like you build up intuition, I think.
Called common sense.
Yeah.
That's what I call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you do. We always called it a one-horse ranch. It fed too many families, and so nobody made a lot of money on it. But it was like I said, I couldn't ask for a better place to grow up. We broke our own horses, and we had wild horses on the ranch, and we used to drive our cattle. A couple springs, we drove our cattle from Mount Vernon to Silvies Valley, which was 60 miles.
Yeah.
And that was quite a trip out through there. But it was just all part of growing up. That was natural for me. You know about it, being on a ranch
Yeah.
out there where you're at. So you know all about these things. So
Did you ever have any close calls when you were on the ranch growing up that you never, did you tell your parents about them?
no, no, probably not a wise thing.
Yeah.
No, we didn't even have pickups or anything. We had an old car that we could use up on the mountain on the old logging roads. And then we had a tractor with a little 2-wheel cart on behind it. But every time we went anyplace, we went horseback.
Oh, yeah.
And that was just normal. We did everything horseback.
Yeah. And like you learn, what time do you guys have to get up on the ranch back then? You have to get up and feed your animals before school.
We had to milk cows. When I got back from Alaska, I was in the 2nd grade, and I could crank the milk separator, and it just picked me right up off my feet before it brought me back down again, and I had to do that 60 times a minute. And my brother was old enough to milk the cows, and then pretty soon I got old enough to milk the cows. And then after we both kind of got away from home, my dad bought an electric separator.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. But,
yeah, you probably appreciated all the work you guys did.
oh, yeah, we did. Yeah, but the funny thing of it is, too, and I kind of look back at it now and I'm kind of ashamed of myself, is we could play sports. And if you played sports, you didn't have to go to the ranch.
Yeah.
I played every sport there was, just
Yeah.
so I didn't have to go down there. And I look back on it now, it's really hard on him, but he
Yeah.
didn't care as long as we were behaving ourselves. Is
Yeah.
kind of what it was, yeah.
So you have pretty good parents.
Oh, great parents, yeah.
Yeah. I love to hear that because it's a lot more rare than you think.
Oh, man, I'll tell you, I know it. I lived around some people that their parents were terrible. But mine were very loving and caring and took good care of us. We
Yeah.
had to work. And a lot of times as boys, we didn't. There was my brother and I. He's 4 years almost to the day older than I was. But he never, or we never got to do anything that we didn't earn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He got a car, and he took off when I got his car, and they wouldn't give me one.
Yeah.
So I didn't get a car until I was out of the service. They didn't want me to leave,
Right.
because they needed the help, and
Right.
we were tired of working for nothing. But, you look back on it now, and you got food on the table, and you got a roof over your head, and you got everything you needed.
Yeah, and think all the skills you learn too. I was thinking about that one time. I was being, I don't know, maybe kind of ignorant, but I was in a conversation with somebody, and because I have quite a few successful friends, and a lot of them grew up poor and ended up becoming successful. And I was telling them, I was like, yeah, but when you grow up, my family had a logging outfit and a farm, and I didn't suffer at all. But I said, you feel obligated. Like growing up, I felt obligated to that, and I always feel like it kind of maybe curtailed my dreaming capability of like what I could do, and all this stuff. And we were, after the conversation, he was talking about, he's like, yeah, but think of all the skills you learned because of those opportunities, and you just didn't know how to, capitalize off of them in a business for your own. He's like, I had to learn everything, So you think how everything he had to learn after college. He had to go to school, and pay for it. But it makes you think about when you grow up on a farm, although it's dangerous work, there's kids that get seriously injured, and some of them, don't even make it through. Parents also, but you just learn so many skills that even like 10 or 20 years later, you're like,
Oh, exactly. And we're back to common sense again.
yeah,
You got to have that, and that's something I tried. I have one daughter of my own. She's a conductor for the railroad out of Hinkle down there, and she's just about to retire. And then I have 3 stepkids. Jane's oldest son is a machinist down in Albany, and then the next one is stepson. He's in E7 in the military teaching tank fundamentals
oh wow,
in Boise. And the youngest one, Jennifer, she's a traveling nurse. They've all put themselves through school and done everything.
yeah, good kids.
Well, I think that's part of the upbringing.
Yeah,
I really do.
I do too. It's pretty unique to have. One thing we're learning through this is how there was some, let's say the wars, like a lot of kids that were children of like World War II vets. They did not have it that good.
No.
And then, then I think Vietnam also played a role in that. So to have kids that come from those generations and to provide, a good family and a good life for them it's a lot more rare, I think, than I assumed.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, it's the TV and nowadays the phones, the computers. Kids don't know nothing.
Yeah.
There's no common sense unless you're raised like you were on the farm out there, and me, and you were raised logging. I logged off and on for 10 years.
Yeah.
I made enough money going to logging, cutting cottonwood trees to put myself through college.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got screwed out of that too because the guy that was buying the logs, cottonwoods could be this big on the ground and this big on the top,
Right.
and he only measured the top.
Oh
Oh
no,
man, all summer long, and I ended up making enough money to go a little bit of school and pay for my chainsaw
yeah.
and my insurance, which was high being my age, But
That's tough work.
yeah, it was.
Logging's no joke.
Yeah, I did that off and on. I got banged up once really bad. It could have been a lot worse than it was, but I was I worked in on the ground on the landing, and they brought I turned the logs in 2 great big old pine trees and a pushover. And I walked out and cut the root wad off of that pushover and stepped back.
Yeah.
Well, the end of that pushover that was under the big logs was hung up. And so when that D6 cat put the pressure to that, here it came.
Just flipped out.
And hit me. I had my saw right here, and I got the saw up far enough. If I'd have pulled the trigger to cut my head off, I just sharpened it.
Yeah.
It caught me, split my face, head wide open, split me up past the shovel operator and back down on my head. And then the saw come down, cut me on the leg again.
Oh man.
So, hurt every bone in my body pop.
Yeah.
They said you'll be off 6 months and 30 days to the day I was back in the woods. So
What is it about the woods where people can have a near-death experience and they don't leave the woods? There's something
yeah,
about
I
it.
know, yeah.
Those loggers, they're tough, man.
Why my mother was mad when I went to work for Heinz Lumber Company. She was really mad because the guy who took his place had just got killed out there.
Oh,
Walking down a skid trail and a Jill poke fell. Hit him on top of his hard hat and broke his neck.
yeah.
I don't want you to do that. I'm okay, Mom. You know.
You know, my guy, one of my mentors growing up that I fished with, he had a snag come out of the top when he was falling a tree, hit him on the top of the hard hat, broke his hips and his ankles.
Yeah, it just drives
Just
it
hit
right
him
down.
just square.
Yeah, usually it kills them.
Yeah.
My uncle, Jane, if you notice, she got hurt in 85. She ended a 3-wheeler. Could have been a 10-wheeler as fast as she was going.
Right.
But she was going as fast as she could down the river. And she got to bouncing, and I'm pretty sure she hit the front brake
Yeah.
and went down like that. So we've dealt with that for quite a while. But she's got a world champion in weightlifting for a league, and she's done about anything and everything that they said she'd never live.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Those 3-wheelers, those things were a death trap. Wait, those were. I wonder what the statistics are on those.
They weren't
the deaths
good.
on those. They were just an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, she was asked to go to Southern California and talk about it, but she wasn't in any shape when she first got there.
Yeah, I bet.
Had her drugged up so bad that she just was kind of a zombie,
Yeah.
for lack of a better way to put it, until we went and seen. You probably remember Ray Michaels at the drugstore. Yeah, he was a good friend of ours, and we went up and seen him, and he said, "Boy, I'm glad you're here." He said, "You need to get off of that crap."
Right.
And so he got us off of the stuff we could get off immediate, and then he weaned us off the other, and we never went back. And doctors and was screaming and hollering, "Oh, you got to get up there, you're going to die." Well, shit, she was dying anyway.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah, that's too bad. But it's a good thing she drove through it and then accomplished all that stuff.
I
after.
have no idea how she's done it.
It makes you wonder, yeah, like what is it? How some people go through a tragic accident like that and they just collapse, and then there's other people, they see it as, every day is a gift, and
It
you
is to
owe
her.
it to those that
It
don't.
is to her. Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, she still struggles a lot, but you'd never know it.
Right.
You know? No, she wouldn't.
Let's see. So 85. When did you go into the Vietnam? Were you drafted into Vietnam?
All my friends that joined the Army and the Marines and everything was getting 3 and 4 years. And then they was going in, they weren't getting anything they were told they were going to get. They were just looking for cannon fodder, that's
Yeah.
all it was. So anyway, I elected to get drafted. And then because when they would come home, you get a year's time training, and then you get a year in Vietnam or wherever, and then you come back to the United States after you've been in a war country. It's not good on people.
Yeah.
It's very mental. And so I decided to let them draft me.
Yeah.
I was surprised that I even got to go because they said my hearing was so bad I couldn't. I was standing in line in the induction center, and the Marine DI come in and said, you are Marines. And I'm going, oh, shit. Scared crap out of me, but then the guy said, we're not going to be able to keep him anyway, so why don't you find somebody else? They took the guy next to me.
Yeah.
And so I went ahead and got drafted. I went Fort Lewis, Washington for basic. I went to AIT in Fort Huachuca, Arizona at Wheel Mechanic School. I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma Track Mechanic School. And then TDY as a motor sergeant till I was supposed to go to Fort Knox, Kentucky to be an instructor, turret mechanics instructor, and Vietnam overrode it. I went over there instead. I got in country, and we was in a pretty hot spot, and they needed a VTR driver, which is an M88. Do you know what that is?
M88?
Yeah.
Nope, not off the top of my
I
head.
can show you a picture of it if you want.
Is that one of those tire tanks?
No, it's a tank retriever is what it is.
Oh, I know what an M80. It has the big boom on it.
Yeah,
that huge.
Yeah, that's what I drove for a year.
It's a huge dozer, isn't it? Like a D8 or something they converted, or
no, it's got a blade on the front of it,
That's
but it isn't what you think it is. It's actually when you're lifting something super heavy.
oh
you
yeah,
put that spade down,
for your
and
counter.
then you can pick anything up.
Did they call it a Hercules or something like
That's
that?
the new one.
Oh, okay.
That's the new one. That's what my stepson deals with right now.
Oh, okay.
He's in tank fundamentals over in Gowan Field in Boise,
Oh, wow.
and he teaches all the gunners and everything. He was the first and for a while only National Guard master gunner in the United States for a while. Now there's more.
Oh, cool. Good for him.
Well, he's good at what he does, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if he got that part of it from me. I'm his stepdad, but it was all about tanks. There you go.
Blow that thing up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a machine. Now that's the Hercules there. That one there was. We were the 56-ton one. That one there. That's us right there.
Oh, isn't that cool? And so you got into one of those as soon as you got into country in Vietnam?
The driver got sick or something happened to him, and they said, "Can you drive that?" And I said, "If you'll show me how to start it, I can drive it."
Yeah.
And that's what I did for the next year.
Oh, cool.
That.
Was it what was that experience like? Was it pretty scary?
Scary as hell sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
We started out right on the DMZ. On a clear day, you could see the N-Bay flag raise.
Oh, wow.
And then we went from there all around doing different things. We were the 3rd of the 5th Cab of the 9th Infantry Division, and what that was just security. We were helping people get out of trouble. And so we did a lot of stuff like that, going in to help fire bases clean up, and
Yeah.
that's what we were doing on the DMZ, was helping the Marines get cleaned up there.
Oh, man.
They got in a lot of trouble. But that was a long time ago, 55 years ago last month.
Yeah. Did you, were you one of the individuals that came back from Vietnam and didn't talk about it much for a long time? Or
To start with, yeah.
Yeah.
But, after a while, everybody told me, if you're struggling, get it out.
Yeah.
And I listened to the old timers.
Right.
I did, yeah.
So that you had some individuals that you're able to speak with about it.
Yeah,
that were pretty open.
and just talk about it. You don't
Yeah.
have to get down to the nitty and dirty, stuff. But excuse me. But yeah, I can tell you a story that is why I struggled with PTSD. If you want me to do that.
Yeah, it's up. Up to you.
We were leaving the Ashaw Valley, which had been nasty. It was really ugly down in there. And we was all ready to leave the Ashaw Valley. I had a tank hooked on behind my tank retriever, all ready to go. And right just as we took off, they said, "You unhook from your tank and you go pick up B Troop tank. Hook on and go." And that's what we did. And we got almost to the top of one of them big ridges like that. And unbeknownst to me, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. And the tow bar had broke. It was a bad weld. But we didn't know that. It wasn't our stuff because we inspected everything and took good care of it. Them guys didn't care. And so as we went down the hill, you can imagine what a tow bar with only one leg on it goes.
Yeah.
You turn one way and it goes the other way, and that's what happened. And it took a friend of mine with it.
Oh, man.
And it wasn't pretty.
That's crazy. I couldn't imagine.
You can't unsee some things.
Right.
Takes me a minute sometimes to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to think about all the different ways when you get into something that chaotic like war that can occur.
Yeah.
The complacency, I'm sure, is a huge part of a lot of the accidents, but because of the chaos, you're not going to be able to focus on every little thing.
Well, and you can't, that's exactly right. And they were looking for somebody to blame. And of course, who else would you blame but the driver?
Yeah.
And so they was talk about sending me to LBJ, Long Bend Jail. And I was just beside myself. I didn't know what the hell else to do, And there's a little XO executive officer that he said, there's something wrong here, And so he went and they got that tow barn, inspected it, and a weld had broken. And a guy had tried to fix it, and he didn't know what he was doing. And so the minute we got in trouble, it just broke and came apart. So that got me off the hook.
Yeah.
But still,
Well, it's one of those things where the full story will probably never be known. Maybe that guy just got thrown into, welding it and never had it,
Well, yeah. And somewhere along the line, somewhere in the mid-'70s, I got a call from a guy from California, and he said, can you come help me? They're trying to get me in trouble for my welding. And I said, what's this about? And he said, well, you remember when? And I didn't remember. I remembered my situation, but I didn't remember his. But he wasn't even in our group. He was from headquarters. I was in 8 troops.
Yeah. How long were you in Vietnam for?
A year.
Oh, the minimum? Is that what the minimum was?
Well, no, they could get you in and out of there, but what they tried to do is get you home just a few days before your year was up.
Yeah.
Then they could send you back.
Oh.
And they did a lot of people, too, when they needed them. They offered me a crap load of money to stay over there and train ARVNs. And I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
My size and white hair and guys about half your size that would hit the brush as soon as shit hit the fan. And so I didn't want anything to do with it.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't want anything to do with Vietnam. I got to commend your generation. It's being drafted is just, I'm not making this political, but just my thoughts in my head. You know how people say like the freedom of choice and all this stuff lately? And I've spent a lot of time with some veterans over the years, and it always makes me think, what about men are being drafted? Like none of that's your choice.
No, and a lot of them, because you didn't join, they put you in the shit jobs.
Yeah.
11 Bravo, you was a grunt. That's all
Yeah.
there was to it. Unfortunately, like I said, I wasn't even supposed to be in the military. They had me kicked out until them orders come up.
Yeah.
But it's, the only thing I can say is I survived, and
Yeah.
my brother spent a year over there too. He was in the Marines. He spent a year over there, 4 years before I did.
Do you remember, did people have a victim mentality about being drafted?
I think some did.
Yeah.
It's, the city people did.
Yeah.
I don't think the loggers and the farmers and the people like that, the ranchers and the working people kind of understood. They look back at what happened in World War II, and everybody joined.
Yeah.
And you wanted to do your part.
Yeah.
But the people that didn't understand will never understand. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. I've never asked that question. I've always wanted to, because you just hear how hard those generations were. And I can tell you, like, personally, I would be tail tucked between my legs. I'm just not like that at all. And that's why I have so much respect for people that have went through it. And I think it's,
Do you guys, you're probably not old enough to remember what Winnemucca was.
Mm-mm.
There was a few houses of ill repute down there. So a bunch of us, before we got drafted and in the military, we went down there. And we got asked to get out of town. We'd spent enough time down there.
Yeah.
And so when I got back, I and another guy, we had his 57 Chevy, and we had it plumb full of whiskey and beer and everything we'd bought in Nevada. And we got 3 MIPs that night.
Oh,
When we got
geez.
back into town. What are you going to do? Take my birthday away from me? Send me to Vietnam,
Right.
And so I was in basic training when the sheriff come to my dad's house and said, I need to arrest your son. And he said, I'd love to have him back on the ranch. Why don't you go get him?
Yeah, go get him.
Yeah. And sheriff tore him up right in front of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a gentleman on here. He was drafted by the judge.
Mm-hmm.
He got into a little too much trouble.
Yeah.
And he had promised him if he got in trouble again, he'd go into the army.
And that was
sure enough.
that was really common,
Yeah.
When you're going into a situation like that, fellas, it's scary as hell.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And you just don't know what to think and what to do.
Right.
Like us that was raised on a ranch, you kind of understood about life and death because you've seen it almost every day with animals
Right.
and stuff, but most people don't know that.
That's one experience about hunting. You get a lot of pushback when you put things out about hunting into the public, and people are like, oh, they're just killers, or they're psychopaths and all this stuff. And it's hard to explain through just, texting somebody on the internet until you do it. But when you hunt or you're on a ranch and you take the life of an animal, let's say, and people don't understand that it's not just for fun. It's so much bigger than that, and your appreciation for life increases tenfold every time. I think it's an experience that, it's the reality. We talked about that a little bit before. It's just reality that that's what you need to survive. And
well, I never have enjoyed killing anything.
No.
I really never have.
Right.
But I sure enjoy eating it.
Yeah.
And that's the way I've always been.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, because what I enjoy about the entire process is the camaraderie of a team. If you're hunting in a group or whatever, and when you share the meal together, that animal lives on for so many meals, and so many memories are made over it. And I think that it's something that a lot of people just can't comprehend because they get so hyper focused on the.
Well, one of the things I've always tried to do, and it doesn't always work. You know that you're a hunter, I think too, aren't you? It isn't a perfect world, and you don't get perfect shots.
Right.
And then you got to deal with that.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of people get to thinking about a little too much.
Right.
You just need to better yourself is what you got to do there. So.
Well, and it's a point of respect for a hunt or an animal. Like we hunt really steep country, and if we fall down on that hill, between hunts, you'll get back, but you're going to sight that rifle in again. Luckily, we have targets and stuff up there.
I
But
agree.
you just owe it to the animal to be as ethical as possible. And it's I think people, hunters get a bad rap because you see all the poachers in the news. You see the people that are out drinking and driving and shooting them out of the window, but you never hear the stories about the hunter's ethical kill.
Right.
And a lot of things also, the poaching and stuff, I can guarantee you the public might be mad about it. They don't make anybody more mad than hunters.
Right.
Oh, exactly.
The biggest conservationists I've ever met are hunters and fishers because they understand it.
Yeah.
Well, we try to deal with, like you said, the fishing and everything, because it's right now they've taken the limit off of walleye and smallmouth bass, and they're just raping the river.
Yeah.
I stopped and seen some guys today that had a whole full cooler of them.
Yeah.
And they're not very big either. They're little ones. When I first started fishing, you caught one under 6 pounds, you thought something was wrong.
Right.
And that's not the way it is anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's a marketing game. Back to coming out of Vietnam. How was your transition out of Vietnam?
Here again, it wasn't too bad. I didn't get spit on. I got a woman and a bunch of kids, a couple moved in front of me in the line in the airport, or not the airport, actually it's a bus terminal, because another story, but nothing. I got $34 to get a bus ticket from Seattle to Boise.
Oh, wow.
That's all I got.
That's it.
I've never got the rest of it either. They have no records of me anyplace other than a DD-214 that says I was there.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
No GI Bill then?
Oh, I could get it.
Oh, you could?
But because I had a DD-214.
Oh.
But I'm trying to get some disability now because I hit a big IED over there, and it screwed all of our backs out.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to, everybody keeps telling me, go get some help, get some help. So I've been trying to do that, but without records, it's pretty hard.
Right.
So I wrote a whole story up about my experience in Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
And Jane's going to type it up for me tomorrow, I think. And it isn't very long, but it's kind of tells what I remember of what we went through and stuff,
Good. I'm glad you're doing that. That's important.
I think it is too, and I think it's helped me.
Yeah.
I really do.
Good.
I do, because for the first 11 years, I really struggled with it.
Yeah. You mentioned...
and alcohol was a big issue, huge issue with me. I come from an alcoholic family.
Right.
Both sides of my family were not not fallen down drunk alcoholics, but everybody drank,
Yeah.
And so when you was a kid, you did the same thing.
Right. Did you notice it got worse after Vietnam? Did your drinking get worse after? I mean, like,
Oh yeah, terrible.
yeah, it's like the stress drives you to drinking, and then the stress from drinking drives you to drinking again.
Well, I think so. I haven't thought of it that way. I just think that the thoughts and the things that went on, like I say, you can't unsee some things, and that's a big issue.
Yeah.
With me, it was anyway.
Okay.
I spoke freely about it. If somebody asked me something, I didn't hide it. I told them, this is what I did, this is how I did it, and why I did it, And,
Right.
and some people don't understand, and some people don't care, and don't ask me if you don't want to know. That's kind of where I'm at with that one.
Right.
So,
Looking back on drinking to cope with Vietnam or the PTSD, did it ever help that you remember?
no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I just used it as a crutch.
Yeah.
That's all it was. I just used it as a crutch. I did. I got home, and my mother died right after I got home.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I got a woman pregnant, and it was just my daughter now. And then we weren't compatible. It was one of them things that shouldn't have happened, but it did,
Right.
And so that, among everything else, just a rough go for it.
Yeah.
Not trying to make excuses. I did at the time, but now it isn't. It just, I should have known better, but I didn't.
Right.
But
Well, you can only do what you really are. You have to live long enough, I think, to understand the experiences and what's good and bad. And I've always thought, like, looked back on this because, I can say I had like my party scene, where I used to like to go out and party, and especially on weekends that I didn't, because my daughter, I didn't have her full time, my oldest one. And I remember I would always be like, man, why do I go out? And I was like, because when I didn't have her, I felt like a part of me was missing a little bit. You want to be home, but I didn't have her, and I couldn't just go get her, or something like that. So I was trying to cope with it. And I've always, you're talking about making excuses about drinking. I've done it in my head where it's like, yeah, but that one time I met this person and now they're one of my good friends, but that's the risk of meeting that one friend is you probably met 20 enemies in the time you found one good friend. And you probably spent $1,000 doing it when you could have just found the friend in a place that's productive, not in the bar.
Well, exactly. And same with the girlfriend too. That's the same thing exactly.
Yeah.
My wife and I now are best friends. We do everything together. We think alike. It's a struggle sometimes. Her legs are starting to fail her a little bit from all the work in the field. She worked for Oregon State University in field inspections and seed inspection, corn and all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
Spent all that time out there, and you notice she has a black eye patch.
Yeah.
Okay, she has no feeling on this side of her head, and she can't sweat.
Oh.
So being out in that heat and everything, she kept a great big cooler in the back of the car, or pickup, whichever one she had, with ice water in it, and long sleeve shirts and towels.
Yeah.
Come out of the brush, put one of them on, let the other ones cool off a little bit, and then pretty soon she'd get too hot, come back out, and she'd do that all day long, day in and day out.
Man.
A lot tougher than I am.
Yeah, that takes some mental fortitude right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where'd you meet her at?
Actually, I'd met her at Boardman. I worked with her ex-husband for a while, and we were both drunks. And then I seen her there, never met her. But then I'd quit drinking and went to work. PGE was a great place to work. When we weren't doing anything there and the economy was down and the price of power was down, they farmed us out to different places.
Oh.
So I went to Trojan nuclear plant for 3 different summer tours, and then I worked at the Western Line Department 3 summer tours. I spent 9 months at the Beaver Generating Plant just because they needed the help.
Right.
But I met her at Trojan.
Oh, okay.
At the nuclear plant, and the sparks just flew, and they're still flying.
There you go. I like that. And you haven't burned the place down yet.
Not yet.
And yeah.
It's close. Been close.
Yeah.
We have thrown a few things at each other, but
There you go.
I think when you live with somebody that long, it's bound to happen.
Yeah. That's good. What was there a moment that got you to quit drinking? Was there something that clicked?
I had been thinking about it, and I got up one morning, and I was supposed to go to work that morning, and there was a empty bottle of black velvet and a half empty bottle there. And I looked at that and said, I gotta knock this shit off. And that's got me motivated to do it. I went through Portland General Electric and a friend of mine, and they helped get me into a treatment center down at Vancouver, Washington, St. Mary's down there. Yeah.
Good for you.
And it needed to be done.
Were you embarrassed at the time?
Well, of course. Of course. I don't really have a problem, but, and so it is what it is,
I like that. I think that's one of the things that holds people back is the embarrassment.
Sure it is. Yeah.
But you know what? I hope people understand that 99 out of 100 people that you meet and tell the story to will be supportive and a little envious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good for you. I think
that's a really good point on that, because I talk to people, and I was with a peer support group with PGE for 30 years.
Yeah.
And mostly it was not PGE people because they were ashamed.
Yeah.
It was local people I helped. They'd get a call and we'd talk about what needed to be. I'm not a counselor, don't want to be a counselor, but I help people find counseling.
Right.
And find the right track to go on, whether it be marriage or alcohol or drugs or gambling, anything, like that.
So are you pro counseling and therapy?
I think, and the only thing I can tell anybody that's going to go into counseling, if you don't get along with them, find somebody else.
Yeah.
Period. Don't suffer through something you don't like.
Right.
Excuse me.
I get into arguments every once in a while with people because I'm a little anti-therapy, but I'm not anti-therapy. I'm anti-therapist, because almost everybody I've ever known that's gone into the field, or even I've visited with some people that have self-admitted that they went into it for the wrong reason, and they have a hard time. A lot of them have a hard time not being self-affected. So this is just my crazy belief, but I always think, for me, and I know this doesn't work for everybody, but I've always had the best friends and mentors, and they were the best therapy ever because I wasn't embarrassed to tell them stuff. I knew that I had good friends that loved me and good mentors, and I would tell them anything. Yeah. And it was like, so I didn't have to go find somebody outside of my realm because I didn't need to find somebody that was outside of my network, because I had people around me that were so non-judgmental and so loving. And I always just wish people would find those people in their life, because because you have them longer and you don't have to pay them normally.
But not everybody has those people.
I know it.
They're in this track that's avoiding all that. They don't want to be involved with somebody like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They really don't. Yeah, I got my dad off the alcohol and cigarettes. I got my brother off the alcohol and cigarettes, and a niece and several friends. That's we just communicate, and pretty soon why. What good is it doing you except spending you a lot of money, and you can't look over your shoulder while you're driving. So.
Right. So you've been able
you happen to have some Kleenex or something?
There should be some. Is it right there, or did my daughter steal it?
There you go. I just need one.
There should be.
Yeah. That's all right.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry. I think my little helper's been
helping. That's good. Thank you.
She might have found I shouldn't blame her without evidence, but I'm profiling her. And well, I think that's it's incredible that you were able to use that experience and help so many other people.
Well,
did you feel empowered to do that?
I think so. Jane and I both do. If somebody needs help, we try to help them.
I like that.
We do. It isn't, we don't tell anybody we do it. We don't do anything. We just help.
Yeah.
And don't say a word to anybody. It doesn't make any difference. We're not out for a pat on the back or nothing. It's just something you do.
Doesn't it feel so good?
Well, yeah, but I mean, it isn't the only thing. It's just that when you see somebody struggling,
Yeah.
especially if you've been there,
Yeah.
it makes a difference.
Yeah, it
It
does.
does. And you learn from those things.
I always think about how, what do you got?
Did I do this?
Right there, oh, perfect, right there.
Okay, sorry. I bumped into it a while ago and I started to get up. But
I always think about that with like, you go through some tough stuff in life, really tough. And I don't know if you've been through this or had this, this thought, but to me, I always, as I've gotten older, I have this moment where I'm like, I went through that to help somebody because almost every hard thing I've been through, after a little bit of time, somebody's brought something up to me and I can be like, that's it.
yeah.
This is one of those moments where I'm supposed to help this person from what I went through.
Exactly.
We're
And
all,
sometimes just a word of advice or a pat on the back. But you can do this or whatever. We all struggle. Every one of us. We got a great life, but look around.
right.
There's a lot of people that don't have what we have,
I know it.
and that's something that we try to. If it works, we can help somebody. If it don't, it don't. Our little community of Boardman's not a little community anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your community meant to you? Like your generation, I feel like had just such more involvement in their communities where, they went to the Granges, they got involved with the city council or volunteer work and, what else are we talking about? Like the Home for Humanity, there's just the communities, smaller communities tend to have happier people, it seems like.
I think that's true. Boardman was real small when I moved. I moved there in 79, actually, spring of 79. I lived in my car.
Oh,
I was out of work over in the John Day Valley, and I didn't have anything, and a friend of a friend told me a guy to get a hold of, and I got a hold of him, and I was still living in my car, out of the bathroom someplace I could get into. So.
yeah.
And then I just finally come out of that and got started and got a decent job. And then I was asked to go to work for PGE. Yeah, a friend of a friend said, "Hey, why aren't you out there putting your name in?" And that's what I did. And they would have hired me on the spot, but I'd promised an old stonemason I would help him finish a house.
Yeah.
And I did that.
Yeah.
And then I went to work on the 1st of November in 79.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's those friends showing up again to help out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's, that when that saying when you're young, people are like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Man, that comes true the older you
isn't
get.
it though? It's
It's
amazing,
crazy.
actually. It's amazing. It really is. Yeah.
I think it's funny how we're just so intertwined. Even, like Wayne and I got connected just through somebody over here and me talk about something at
Yeah.
around a dinner table. They're like, I know a guy. And then Wayne and I, almost a year, we've been buddies doing this and traveled all over the country.
It's amazing. I looked at a couple of years. I didn't look at all of them, of course, but I thought, I don't know if I can do that or not. But, I think with the two of you here, it's a lot easier
Yeah.
than somebody kind of pointing their finger at you and tell me this or tell me that,
Oh, right.
That's not it. But
No, we're here to learn.
yeah.
This is a house of learning doctors over here. So we're trying to figure life out.
Well,
And it's, that's what really it's about is we're just trying to figure life out. And, you talked about how people don't have those people around them that they need. Now that's what we're trying to create is because there's so many people. I look back on my life and think of how lucky I was. I had my grandparents and my mentors I did. And then the more people I meet, because, every new person you meet, you're going to, hopefully if you are good enough at conversation, you'll learn a little bit about them. And so many people were missing out on that.
yeah.
And so we thought, well,
I agree. Yeah.
let's give people the opportunity to sit down and enjoy that generation and learn something if they can.
Well, and that's true if you can get them to listen and instead of interrupting and say me, I crap all the time, which is real common
yeah.
with the younger generations.
Yeah.
It really is.
Do you think it's because they're trying to relate or do you think it's because They want attention.
I think it's what they want attention and they don't know better.
Yeah.
Seriously, a lot of them, both parents are having to work and there's just nobody at home except the TV and the damn phone or the computer.
Right.
And to me, that's going to be our downfall if nothing else. I'll tell you, that's scary.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it too. I sit in my chair and look at my phone, or if I'm waiting for Jane in the car, I'm looking at my phone,
Yeah. Can I push back on that a little bit? Can I push back on that a little
Sure.
bit from my experience? So I can tell you in the last couple years with my daughter having a phone, she's become more of an entrepreneur with it because of these. There's a lot of these kids doing really cool ideas. But you'll notice, I think that the phone is just like anything we had when we were a kid. It's a tool that you're going to use from the values that you're taught. And so we've now traveling with the phone, because we get exposed to a lot of things, and we've traveled all over this last year. And I just love being able to use that device to find out information about the place I'm going and not using a roadmap. And it makes my trip, the value, so much higher for my dollar.
I agree 100%. I do.
But I think that when it's used for a babysitter, like you're saying,
Well,
it's the world's worst
it's
babysitter.
on the wrong track.
Yeah.
And they get to looking up things that they shouldn't be looking up,
Right.
and talking to people they shouldn't be talking.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've got the worst record in the whole world of abducted kids.
Yeah.
And that's not good. I'm sick and tired of that. You hear it every day. You see it every day.
Oh, it's insane.
It is, and it's crazy. And a lot of it comes in on email or text.
Yeah.
It does. And these kids are they're overwhelmed with an older person telling them how pretty they are and whatever, and stuff like that. And
Right.
and
Can you look that up? Can we look up the statistics for just United States child abductions over, let's say, the last 50 years? You know what I'm curious about when you say that now? I wonder if we are exposed to, if the numbers are higher now, or if we're exposed to it more.
well, I think with Diddy and I think with
Right.
what's his name on the island, that was terrible.
Yeah.
And there's nothing happened to these people yet.
You know what disgusts me?
I could deal with them.
Yeah, I bet you could.
Yeah, I could deal with them real easily.
What is it?
He's right. Yeah, it's gone up.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it is. We keep track of it pretty close, and
It's doubled.
yeah,
Since 2014. Is that 1,400 kids a year?
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
well,
crazy. And especially with the ones coming across the border, southern border, half them kids, they have no idea where they
Oh,
are.
that's in England and Wales.
Well, I mean,
I want to see the United States. Just do chat GPT it. If you don't mind. Yeah, I just, you brought up something too, that both parents aren't at home.
Mhm.
That nowadays, that gives a lot more opportunity for these predators.
Exactly. Well, that and the kids getting into places they shouldn't be.
Right.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. They're going to do it anyway because you're not making any difference. You're not there to tell them they shouldn't do it.
Right.
You warned them, but you didn't sit there and watch them, make sure they did. We were pretty fortunate our kids didn't have them at
Right.
the time. And now they've got their own kids and dealing with it,
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's something you got to pay close attention to. I probably should do a better job. Luckily,
Well, just know what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
That's the only thing I can say. You can't stop it. It's every place. She can go over next door to one of her girlfriend's house and use their phone or their computer.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, I was a kid once.
Oh, exactly. That's where I'm going with
We
that.
were doing stuff at.
Oh, geez,
people's house.
I was on written shit when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, I worked like a man when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and I deserved to do these things. That was my mindset.
Right.
And I was just a dumbass kid, that's all there was to it.
Yeah. Do you think that mentality has helped you throughout your life? Like is there a thought process that you think you've had, or a characteristic of your personality that might have been looked at as a child, not the way a child should act, but it's
A lot of
but
it,
it's helped.
because we were treated like we had jobs. We had not like you get a little bit of pittance for doing the cleaning out the garbage can.
Yeah.
We did everything.
Yeah.
And you was expected to, or you didn't eat. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
I had wonderful folks, don't get me wrong. But, man, I'll tell you, they were strict when it come to that.
Yeah.
You live in this house, and you're going to help.
Yeah, I think the days of going to bed without dinner because you got a C on your report card are probably over.
Yeah. I
Makes you
couldn't
wonder
play
about those
sports
lessons.
unless I got a C or above.
Yeah.
And I had to work like hell to do that because I didn't like school. I hated it.
Yeah.
But I played football, basketball, baseball, and run track when there was no baseball going on.
Right. Well,
Everything.
what was your favorite baseball?
Football, I think, but I was too small.
I was hoping you'd say
But
baseball.
I was faster than hell, and my dad wanted me to play baseball because
Yeah.
I was okay at that too. But I thought I was better at football. But
I just love that game,
at what
baseball.
I do too. I played up until I was 50.
Oh, you played in the men's league and stuff?
Yeah, the slow pitch.
Oh, slow pitch?
Slow
Yeah.
pitch, yeah.
Yeah. Try reliving those childhood memories.
Yeah, I did it. We got in some hellacious games with some of the teams, that thought they were pretty good. And I remember we over in John Day, when Slowfish first came out, we was boy, girl, everything, and
Yeah.
it was just fun. And you just had a good time, and we had a little girl she'd never played before. So we had her behind the plate. Okay. So anyway, this doctor came around, and he'd run full length of her, knocked her down. He said she shouldn't be there if she can't do any better than that. A doctor.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, that's fine. So the next time he's up, he's coming around third base. And I don't wait for him at home base. I went and met him. And we laid him out.
Put
Or
the
I
doctor
did.
in the ER?
Yeah. And he crawled over and got in his car and drove off.
Yeah.
I've never seen him again. Nobody offered to help him or anything because what he did to her. you know.
Yeah. That's public justice right there.
I thought it was great myself.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Two steps ahead of him when he was still standing straight up.
Yeah. That's fun. Do you think like looking back when you're young adulthood, do you think the communities were more vibrant? Like, was there a lot more going on? Because I hear that from the older generation, and like you see the movies The Sandlot, right? And then they're doing the 4th of July scene and the fireworks and the communities are all out. Was it really like that? Do you remember?
Yeah, but no, I graduated with 7 other people.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot going on there.
Right.
There wasn't. But we had quite a bit. There's a lot more now than there was back then.
Yeah.
That's what Doug, you can attest to this. It still kind of looks like the Sandlot down there at the marina in Boardman, those small towns.
Yeah.
It looks a lot like that scene every year, 4th of July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's real nice.
Yeah, we used to have it, and I think they're going to get some slow pitch back again now. Last year they had round ball, a rubber ball about that
Oh,
big.
playing dodgeball or whatever?
Kickball. They call it kickball. I'd never seen it before.
Oh, that game's great.
Yeah, I've never played it. And Jane says you're not going to either.
Right?
I get a little carried away when I play sports. So
Oh, yeah. A little competitive nature in there.
kind of hard to get rid of sometimes.
Oh, yeah. That's what keeps a guy going, is a little bit of competition. Yeah.
It is me, yeah.
I was thinking about something there. Man, I had a good question then I got distracted with dodgeball. Man, I had a good question too. So I was thinking about how, I know what I was going to say. You're talking about, I wonder if there's not as much community stuff going on, the kids running around the neighborhoods because of, like the childhood abductions. I think
Yeah.
parents are a lot more afraid to let their kids go out and about.
Well, I think more so here in the Tri-Cities than there would be down there. There's parents every place.
There's a child predator or whatever. That's down loose down there in Umatilla or something, right? Level 3, or they let them.
I heard something about
Well,
that.
here in Kennewick today, some guy tried to hop on a kid's school bus and take it. Luckily, there was no kids on the bus, and they got it handled. I think the bus driver got it handled. But we interviewed a lady. Her husband was murdered on a school bus here. For what, 4 years ago?
We've got some parents, and we got a tremendous amount of Hispanics. I think 83% in our high school.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot. But a lot of these Hispanics, now most of them don't want to be in the limelight at all.
Right.
But the ones that's legal here, they're really productive. They are. They're out coaching soccer. Their kids are going to softball and baseball practice and basketball, and they support them.
Right.
Now, when I first got there, that didn't happen because there was only a handful of them that were legal to be there. And that was about the time I think the state of Washington was charging the farmers $10,000 a worker if they got caught without a green card.
Oh yeah.
That was way back when. I don't know what it is now. I don't think it's even much. It's so screwed up now. Who knows what it is? So
right. That's one thing you got to give it to, like the culture, the Hispanic culture, is they are so close with family, and they're always at the parks barbecuing and with their families and being involved. It's something they got to get figured out. You can understand, that they want to leave a bad scenario. They're not going to be able to raise their family in the environment of Mexico. That government will never recover from its chaos.
No. Not with all the trouble down there with the cartels and everything. It's terrible. I won't go back. I've been down there a few times, and I've never went to one of the big places, Cabo or any of that. We went down with Jane's folks, and they loved it down there, and they had a lot of friends. But I did not like the poverty, and any time here come the military and block your road, and it might take your camera.
Yeah.
Anything.
A buddy of mine was just extorted down there. He was down there, had a rental car, and he was going down an alleyway or something, and the guy just pulled him over. They could see it was a rental car, and they're like, "Oh, you were speeding." He's like, "No, I wasn't." He's like, "Well, you were."
Yeah, that's all there is.
And he's like, "You're $300. You're not speeding."
Yeah.
And they followed him to. I think his friend was at a pharmacy.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I have to go pick up my friend at the pharmacy. They have an ATM."
Yeah.
And he told me, he said it would only let me pull $100 out while I'm traveling. And so he gave him $100. They let him go.
Yeah.
But he had his driver's license. He took his driver's license. That's right.
Yeah.
I just that type of behavior just disgusts me.
Well, and
it's just rampant around there.
Well, it's rampant almost in every country now.
Yeah.
With all the illegals in these countries, look at England and look at all these little countries. This plumb scary, fellas.
Yeah.
They're trying to vote in Sharia law and all this in some of these countries.
Yeah.
Say goodbye then if that happens.
Right.
That's not good.
Has your view on America, you served in the military and you've seen the progression of these wars and things like that. Has your patriotism changed in your life, or has it always
I'm 100% patriotic. And I stand up, I wear the hat. I've got it on my license plate. I've got a flag in my yard with an American flag and a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. Did
it get stronger as you got older?
No, I think that it was always there.
It was always there.
I think so.
As you got older, did you get more bold about exposing it?
Oh, probably. I don't know. Because when you're from a small community and a lot of people are in the military, it makes a hell of a difference than being up here.
Oh yeah.
Where you got so many Karens and stuff around, God, I just see some of them people. I'm embarrassed for them.
Yeah.
My goodness. So.
Isn't that something? That's what I was asking because it's coming into the younger generation where they're getting bolder with supporting the military. Of course, not as many of us, I think, served in the military as your generation and the others, but you can see that there's a lot more younger people, and also marketing, I think, plays a role in it, right? Now you can just order something on Amazon, right? Back then, you probably, like if you went by the license plate at Walmart, you might buy it. Or now you can be like, you can purchase on thought. But I do love seeing the patriotism from the older generations. And I've always wondered, because you hear a lot of the Vietnam veterans didn't talk about it for a long time after. And then I wonder if you reach a point in your life where you're like, you know what? Middle finger to all you people.
Yeah, exactly. Then that's it. But, I didn't go through a lot like a lot of people did.
Yeah.
Some of them were terrible. I met some people that they were never going to be sane. Never. Yeah. That's all there was to it.
Yeah.
One big heavy-set guy, kind of bald-headed and just roly-poly guy, and his best friend got killed. And his dad sent him his Browning automatic shotgun. He sold the barrel off of it. And he carried that in an M16. He would not walk any place but point.
Yeah.
And looking at that guy's eyes scared the crap out of you. Let me tell you, he was not there.
I forgot that your family could send you weapons.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Dwight was talking about that, right? Yeah, that's something.
Mm-hmm. He was the only one I knew that happened. There were so many weapons over there.
Right.
I was only authorized M45, Colt 45, 1911, because I was a driver.
Right.
But he ended up with a M14 and M17 or M79 grenade launcher and a M16.
Wow.
You'd be surprised what you can buy with beer.
Yeah, no kidding. Gosh, isn't that crazy? I think it's I think about like when in Vietnam, we're going back to that. Just did you notice a difference between people that were drafted out of the city and the people that came from the farm?
By all means, yeah. Yeah, it was a whole new world for them. I asked one guy, he was from New Jersey, I think. I said, I'm from Oregon. You mean Oregon? I said, no, Oregon.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you think Oregon is? And he said, well, it's some poles up here with another pole over the top and a dead cow head.
Yeah.
And he was serious.
That's just the way they thought.
Never even looked in a book.
Yeah.
To see what the West Coast, and then everybody thinks the West Coast is all, Oregon and Washington and California is all trees,
You're right.
I live in the desert. You live in the desert.
That's one thing that's funny about travel. You know what's funny about like traveling to the East Coast, or even if you get close to the Mississippi, and people are like, "Oh, you're from Washington?" They're like, "Oh, Washington D.C." Like, no, Washington State, man.
Yeah,
they forget about us up here.
Yeah, I know it. Well, that's all right. I hope they stay there.
Yeah,
that's the way I see it.
I don't know, man.
I can't help it. Jane's best friend is. I got to be careful what I say here, but is a screaming liberal.
Oh yeah,
screaming. And we went back to see her and her husband, which they're both retired out of the military, Air Force. Both had 20 more years of government jobs, and both 100% of disabled.
Yep.
And they just hate America. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. I shouldn't say they hate it. They don't like Trump. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the one thing that you clash about, because even if you look at like population density, is you see basically what you just said right there, how you notice the difference in the city people earlier having the victim mentality a little bit more when they went into Vietnam. And then the more, I would say, rural area people, they just have a different mindset. And when you look at like population density of the country, thank God we have an electoral college, because it gives both people, because the values,
there's a little balance there.
Yeah, you kind of learn a different set of values the more acres per per person, and it's it balances out the country, which is very unique.
Yeah.
Like, because in life you need contrast, to appreciate one or the other. And I don't know, I just think about when I see all these protests going on, well, vandalism, but all these protests and stuff. And like you were talking about, like, I'm just embarrassed for them. Like, I get a peaceful protest, but when you're acting out like a toddler, then you wonder, like, where was your grandparents? Where was that mentor that you needed? Where was those friends that you needed?
A lot of people, grandparents are left out. They are.
Yeah.
I was real fortunate. I didn't get along with my granddad on my mother's side at all. But my other granddad, he died when I was 4. But my grandmother on my dad's side, she was a school teacher. She was the matriarch of the whole family.
Yeah.
And she kept everything together.
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't spend much time with the other, and it wasn't too far away, 60 miles, but I didn't get along with him.
Yeah.
So I didn't stay much. My brother did all the time, so I stayed at the other place.
Right. Yeah, it's important to have that cornerstone of a family.
Oh boy.
Man, I feel bad for people that don't have that.
And we're trying.
Oh, we're at hour 15. Yeah, we're having a good time. It goes fast. Yeah, I was just thinking, I fear that with my grandparents, because they're 91 and 88, and they're the cornerstone, And I just wonder,
stop and see them every chance you get. Say hi.
I call them I talk to them all the time.
Exactly, and that's so important.
Yeah, they're the best. Trust me.
Yeah.
But I always think about, I want to know if you went through this. Did you go through a point in your life where you had this like epiphany, like, I'm the man now? of the family?
No, not really. I did when I first got married because I was the man of the family, you know, but never when my folks were around. No,
Yeah.
I don't think I ever did. I don't remember if I did.
I always wonder, like, because, you know, like my real dad passed away a couple of years ago, and I kind of had this epiphany. I was like, oh, shoot, that's my turn,
Mhm.
you know, or even though he wasn't really in my life, but just this
Yeah.
in life, you know, the way the file system works,
Yeah.
you're next in line. And I kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wonder, I worry about that with my grandparents, you know, when they're gone, I'll be like,
Yeah.
I wonder if I'll be mature enough.
That's up to you.
Yeah.
It is. You know right from wrong. Common sense.
Right.
That's all it is. You can beat it over the head all you want, but that's all it is.
I like that.
Yeah.
It might be like the cancer treatment. It's a lot simpler than
Oh,
making
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's just being grown up and being a good person, have good character. You can't go wrong. You can't.
That's such a good point.
Yeah. Well, it's life, really. You think about it.
Yeah.
You know, we've all got some really good friends, you know, and you got some people that are just friendly. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. That's a good, I've never heard it put that way. I like that.
Yeah.
You got, what do you say? You got a lot of good friends, and then there's some people that are just friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, it is what it is. You know, we're all just trying to make a go of it, and if we can help our parents and our grandparents, like I said, my mother died at age 46,
Oh,
and my dad died. He was 76. He was my age right now. That's what I am, a 76.
okay, yeah.
And it was his. I hate to say this, but him and his brother were the best friends for years. I mean, the best friends. They didn't do anything without talking to the other. And then my uncle got drunk and used some money that was supposed to be for the tavern that they had, and his wife found out the money was missing. So instead of him telling the truth that he had paid some people off that he owed that she didn't know about, he said, my dad stole the money.
Oh, man.
And all he would do over to the little tavern they had was go, 10 bar while they was going to town and going to the bank and whatever. And that was the beginning of the end of our family right there.
Yeah.
Sad to say. It was.
Isn't that one
It was
toxic
terrible.
decision can just tear a family apart?
But you had to know him. You had to know him.
Yeah.
Him and I were really tight until that happened, and then I just abandoned him. I just never paid any attention to him.
Oh, that's too bad.
He was a great big giant of a guy and a bully, and the last time I seen him, we was sitting at the table, and he finally looked like he did 30 years before that.
Yeah.
He was at peace, and he died about the next week or something like that. But up until then, he was just an evil old man.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You know, one thing I've learned is there's some people in life that they don't deserve grace, or they make a decision.
I agree.
You know, it's one thing to be empathetic, but you can be overly empathetic and understanding, and it can cause a lot of damage.
Well, it isn't a perfect world, and that's the thing. And if we can learn to get along with everybody, it isn't going to be perfect, but we can do a lot better than we're doing.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I like that.
I really do.
Before we wrap up, we always ask if you could give some advice to the younger generations. What's something that you've held true to yourself, or a value that
You already heard it.
I like that. I figured, but
Yep. You treat people how you want to be treated, and you lead by example. And, that I've lived with that for years.
yeah.
And we've done all right. We're not exceptionally rich. We get by, and we enjoy life, and we go do things, and
Yeah.
we just have fun.
Life's good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. I like to hear that.
Got some good kids, Everybody's happy. Everybody works. Nobody's living in the basement, and we're pretty happy about that.
Yeah. I like that. We just have discussions in the basement around here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Well,
that's all right. So, yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me. I've enjoyed this a lot.
yeah, me
I
too.
have.
You're always invited. I really appreciate you coming. It's I appreciate you letting me ask you some questions about my own questions
by all
about some
means,
things,
yeah.
because when you meet people that go through different life experiences, and I kind of selfishly try and think about how can I learn something from this person, and so I appreciate you letting me ask some of those questions.
Well, can I tell you another thing my dad used to say?
Of course.
Never let anything be wrong with your asker.
Oh yeah.
And I'm serious. I've used that, and I've had a couple of my bosses say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Suit yourself. But that's what my dad said.
Yeah, I like that.
That's what my dad said.
I like that. And I don't know about you, but as I get older and I work with younger kids, now that are, 15 years younger than me or something, and sometimes they'll ask me an important question about life. And then you realize, man, this person thinks something of me, enough to ask me a valuable question. And then I realized, you don't beat around the bush. You don't fake the answer. You don't tell them what you think they want to hear.
Right, yeah.
You answer the question truthfully because they gave you some respect with just asking the question, and they want to know the truth. And so I appreciate you letting us do that. It's it means a lot.
And I'm glad you did, because I kept bugging myself on how am I going to keep this going, but this has made it work perfect. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it goes fast. It goes so fast.
Are you a skier?
Nope, snowboard.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you one story that I had at the ranch. Everybody else didn't have to work. We did. My brother and I, we'd get out and get done feeding the cows. We'd tie on my mom's old skis that she had when she was a kid back in the 30s. And one of us would rope a cow, throw the rope to the guy with the skis on, stick the dog on the cow.
That's just old hillbilly skiing, huh? Did you tell the parents?
Huh?
Did the parents know
Well,
about
we
it?
broke a hip on a cow, and we got in trouble for that.
Oh, I bet. Oh,
Dad
that's good
said, "That's
stuff.
enough, boys." But, can you imagine going out through the frozen cow turds, banging
Oh,
off and everything, trying to hang on to a rope?
Oh, man.
I thought he might get a kick out of it.
We need a little bit more boredom around here. I was thinking, you were talking about things you do on the farm. My grandpa doesn't know this, but I don't think he'll listen to this. But one time I was hauling ass across I was supposed to go dig out a beaver dam. And I had stuff to do, go hang out with the friends and stuff. I was like, all right. I had that backhoe in third gear flying through the Timothy, this tall. My grandpa ran a ditch through the center of that thing. Big ditch through the last time. Man, I hit that thing. Front tires hit it. And the counterweight of the
bucket,
hoe
yeah.
kept the front tires in the air. So by the time those back tires hit, and they were a little bit lower PSI, man, it trampoline that thing. I bet you it went 3 feet in the air and went 30 feet. Man, landed. Then I was like, a year later, my grandpa was like, hey, the back end of the backhoe frame's cracked. And it took me years. I don't know. It like popped in my head one day. I was like, oh my God, I think I broke that frame.
You probably did, yeah. My dad was watching me, and I was up in a middle meadow. You wouldn't understand where it is, but it was, and pretty soon I was off on the mowing machine. We didn't have swathers. We had a mowing machine on the back of the tractor.
Back with tractor, yeah.
And I was going in circles with that mowing machine out through this field. He come up, are you all right? What's going on? Did a bee get you or something like that? And I said, I'm chasing that badger right there. And I'd been out there just tearing the hell out of the field.
Oh, yeah.
Sickle bar was still down too. So.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, you got it. That's one thing about a farm. Think about how many kids miss those memories. Like they never get to have them.
They won't. And that's what I try to tell people, that's never done anything like that. I've got some cousins that really was raised in the city.
Yeah.
And if they hadn't been to our place when they were kids, they would not have any memories at all, like they have.
Yeah.
And a couple of them, we fought hard to keep that ranch down there, but it was just more than we could do.
Yeah.
Been in the family 100 years.
Isn't that something?
And I was going to sell my home. I was going to sell some other properties I have, but the price was just going crazy high, and I couldn't keep up with it.
Right.
I almost had it, but then it was too much. So
that's too bad.
Yeah, we'd built a cabin on it and had 3.5 acres of irrigated alfalfa.
Yeah.
Gravity flow right in front of it. So I got some beautiful pictures of elk and sheep and everything. But it's history.
Right. Yeah, maybe they were just not meant to be.
That's all I can say too, really,
Yeah,
seriously.
one of those things. I was going to tell you one more farming story before we go because you'll get a kick out of this. But one time I was out on a Massey Ferguson. I think it's a 135, so it's open cab. And it's summer and it's hot as heck, and I'm raking hay, probably for the second time. And my grandpa comes out there, I forget what he was doing, checking on me probably. And he says, and I was like, he's like, how's it going? I'm like, God, it's fine. There's all these dang flies all over. And he says, those are shit flies. I'll never, just like that.
Just
that
come
is,
right out all at once.
Oh
shouldn't
yeah,
you?
I threw the pitch, man, and he just smoked it. He knew it, and it was one of those things. All of a sudden, he's like, man, my grandpa was so quick. It was so funny.
That's where my dad was. He bought and sold cattle for years, and he just, a lot of the guys wouldn't deal with him unless he had a new joke for him.
Yeah.
And oh my God, he had the best humor you ever seen, and it scared Jane. That was during her time that she was hurt real bad.
Oh yeah.
And so she didn't really get to know him, But it's too bad because, she's got a great sense of humor, too.
Do you remember any of his jokes?
Oh, some, yeah. But, God, there was millions of them. When I was drinking, I could sit all night and never tell the same joke twice.
Oh.
Now, shit, I can't hardly remember any.
Do you have any good old jokes?
Um,
We haven't asked anybody about a good old joke. There's some good humor in those.
No, let me think about it a little bit. Well,
We'll
now
close on
that you ask me, no.
Yeah. I got to think. I used to think of the one about what was it? The fly, the cat, and the fish. That one's not appropriate.
Oh.
But yeah, I can't remember any of the
Go
funny.
ahead.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah,
I
it's
hope we
my
didn't keep you
pleasure.
too
Really
long.
is. I was nervous as hell, and I wasn't making excuses. It just wasn't working,
Yeah, I think I told you it's not going anywhere. Invite's always there.
Yeah, good. Well, we might have to do some more. I might have to think up some lies and stuff about it, But there's a lot of pictures in there. There's some in there that I've shared with the veterans and stuff like that.
Do you go to the VFW?
It's 50 miles for me to get there and
Right.
back.
The one in Kennewick?
No, in Hermiston.
Oh, where's your place
I
then?
live in Boardman.
Oh, Boardman? Oh, yeah, back there and back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you...
And that's not a good excuse. Don't get me wrong, but I had new lenses put in my eyes, and at night driving is not the best for me.
Oh.
They got rainbows around them, and they told me it's going to happen.
You know what we should do on Friday? Is I should talk Wayne into picking you up, and we'll come up here, and we'll go to the VFW with some of the people that we've interviewed with.
Mm-hmm.
We should go do that one day.
Sure.
If you want. If you ever get bored on a Friday, it is one of the
I'm
best.
always bored. When you don't drink and kids are all gone, what the hell?
Oh, it's one of the best experiences of my life, going in there.
And with the peer support group, I'll tell you this. When I went through the treatment center, I was struggling, of course, oh, poor me and all that stuff, but there's a couple things that really came home to me. And one of them was, I could have diabetes, I could have cancer, I could have any number of things. And I got alcohol problems. All you got to do is not drink. And that little light bulb clicked on it, and that's right then. I didn't think, of course, you think about it because you'd done it for so many years, but that was the starting point for me right there.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that continuously through your stories, your solutions are very simple.
Well, it's common sense.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's all I can say. It is.
Well, I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, man.
Of course.